this lecture, we are of course looking at grammar, with the aim of shedding light on a few of the more important issues concerning grammar for second language development. The main issues I will address are 1. The needs and goals of our students. 2. Should we even worry about teaching grammar? As in, does teaching grammar make any difference to language development? And 3. What teaching methods should we be employing if and when we do decide to teach grammar? But before addressing these 3 issues, let's first define what we mean by grammar. For many teachers, grammar is largely seen as the formal rules that dictate the way words and their constituent parts combine to form sentences. This type of prescriptive grammar involves the study of syntax and morphology and uses sexy words like past participle, clause, and conjugate, just to name a few. Juxtaposed with this, we have descriptive grammar, which describes what people actually say in a given context or situation, not what they should say, as is the case with prescriptive grammar. Descriptive grammar is often judged acceptable based on nothing more than a native speaker's intuition of their own language. Let's look at an example to illustrate the point. Elvis once said, "You ain't nothing but a hound dog." This utterance is not grammatically correct based on the formal prescriptive rules of grammar, but using a descriptive approach, this utterance is usually deemed perfectly acceptable based on the context of the situation and the purpose of the language. This simple example demonstrates that language is not as simple as just learning the formal rules and filling in the blanks with the corresponding word types. Now we understand 2 different ways of viewing grammar. I want to add one more idea to the mix, and this is the idea of systemic functional grammar. Now don't worry, I'm not going to delve into this too deeply. All I want to say is that this paradigm is centered around the function of language. It suggests that we should be concerned with what the communication is about, who is taking part in the act of communication, and finally, how the communication is taking place. For example, the grammar structures found in a formal letter to your boss are totally different to the structures found in a hip-hop track or wedding proposal. Got it? Of course you do. And if you don't, just check out our notes on the website. It's all there for you. Now let's move on to addressing the 3 issues I raised at the start. The first one relates to the needs and goals of our students. Let me put it like this. Often our students need to learn grammar, namely prescriptive grammar. This is because they need to pass exams to qualify for a job or a university place, etc. So our opinion on the importance of teaching prescriptive grammar, as valid as it may or may not be, should not even come into play here. If our students are required to pass these exams, then it is our job as teachers to make sure we help them. Case closed. If, on the other hand, our students are not required to pass these exams, then we have more leeway to implement various strategies relating to the learning and teaching of grammar. We also often have more control over the amount of focus we place on teaching the formal rules of grammar in situations where it is not part of a formal curriculum. Let's assume that no tests need to be taken. This then leads into the second issue. Should we even teach grammar? I mean, does it facilitate language development? Well, based on current research, the answer should be yes. This is because A. Grammar instruction has been shown to enhance accuracy in a number of grammatical structures and target language forms, and B. That grammar instruction can enhance meaning-focused and communicative-based instruction by acting as a type of pointer for students to notice something in the input, therefore giving them the opportunity to attend to it and process it. But with this being said, the benefits of grammar instruction should not be taken to mean that explicit grammar instruction, where a student just learns rules, will ensure the development of the implicit knowledge needed for fluent and accurate communication. Nor does it mean that the traditional teacher-fronted grammar lessons that require students to memorize rules and label parts of sentences is the best way to present grammar. Not at all. All it suggests is that learning grammar is important to our learners' language development. As teachers, what we need to figure out is what is the most effective way to teach grammar, which coincidentally is the final of the 3 issues to be addressed in this mini lecture. So, how should we teach grammar? I think the best way to answer this is by providing a few points for you to consider for yourselves. After all, you guys have your own ideas of what works and what doesn't, and we all understand that what works for some teachers won't work for others. But this does not mean we can't have a few guiding principles to help us out. I will quickly list 7 for you, but remember, these are just my ideas. Here we go. First, it is becoming more and more apparent that traditional teacher-fronted grammar classes, which require the memorization of rule after rule after rule, is probably not the most effective way to teach grammar. Second, listen to and monitor your students' reactions to grammar. After all, they are the best gauge on how you should teach. 3. Keeping in mind that aside from those students who need to remember prescriptive grammar rules for their school or university exams, etc., for most people, the goal of second language learning is the development of communicative competence. This being true, then it might be a good idea for grammar and communication to be integrated into the same lesson and even into the same exercise. 4. Unless a student is studying for a test, grammar lessons should make up part of the lesson, not the entire thing. Unless, of course, you have a reason for dedicating an entire class to a certain structure, which, of course, is definitely possible. 5. Try a guided, inductive approach to teaching. This approach requires the teacher to guide the students to the right answer while still letting them experiment and figure out the underlying grammatical rules by themselves. It requires the teacher to ask prompting questions, drawing the student's attention to certain elements if they can't find them for themselves. It is using exemplars of the target language and asking the students to draw conclusions. It is not explicitly explaining a rule until the student has got a grasp of it for themselves. 6. Grammar lessons do not always have to be planned. Often, the input will allow a teacher to focus on something that the student themselves has drawn attention to. And 7. It might be best to introduce grammar after a student has already developed a basic communicative ability. So, there we have it, another mini lecture done and dusted. As always, check out the website for more clarification on today's topic and the role of grammar for second language development. To conclude, I would like you to think about how the following quote by Pablo Picasso can be applied to prescriptive, descriptive, and functional grammar. The quote is, "Learn the rules like a pro, so you can break them like an artist."